Tell them they hurt you. You're calm, specific, vulnerable. You're not attacking, you're simply naming the wound. And they stare back at you with something that looks like confusion or irritation or cold silence. They deflect. They rationalize. They tell you you're too sensitive, or that you're remembering it wrong, or that you hurt them first years ago in some unrelated moment they've been cataloging. But they don't apologize. Not because they don't understand what you're saying, but because somewhere deep in their psychological architecture, apologizing feels like something far more dangerous than conflict. What if the inability to apologize isn't about pride, arrogance, or cruelty? What if it's about survival? Today, we're uncovering the hidden agreements, the unconscious psychological contracts that govern people who cannot say, "I'm sorry." These aren't character flaws. They're defense mechanisms built in childhood, reinforced through trauma, and now running silently beneath every interaction. Let's examine the 4 core agreements that keep someone trapped in the prison of never apologizing.
To admit fault is to self-destruct. To apologize is to expose a fatal weakness that will be exploited, weaponized, or used to confirm what they've always secretly feared, that they are fundamentally defective. This agreement is forged in environments where mistakes were met not with correction, but with annihilation. A child whose parent responded to small errors with rage, humiliation, or withdrawal learns a terrifying equation: vulnerability equals danger. The psyche, desperate to survive, creates a solution. If I never admit I'm wrong, I can never be destroyed. The ego becomes a fortress. Apologizing isn't just uncomfortable, it feels like opening the gates to an invading army. It activates a primal panic, a sense that if they admit fault, their entire sense of self will collapse. Beneath the stubbornness is a fragile core, a self that was never allowed to be imperfect and still be loved. You approach them with hurt, they respond with immediate defensiveness. They don't hear your pain. They hear an accusation that threatens their psychological survival. They deflect. "I didn't do that." They minimize. "You're overreacting." They reverse it. "Actually, you're the one who hurt me." They shut down entirely, leaving you in an emotional void, wondering if you imagined the whole thing. What you're witnessing isn't cruelty, it's terror. The inability to apologize is a protective reflex, automated and unconscious. To them, saying "I was wrong" feels like stepping off a cliff with no ground beneath them. But the cost is steep. Every refusal to apologize is a brick in the wall between them and intimacy. They remain safe, but profoundly alone.
My value as a human being is conditional on being flawless. An apology is a public admission of imperfection, and therefore a confirmation that I am unworthy of love. This agreement forms in households where love was given transactionally, where approval was earned through achievement, compliance, or the absence of mistakes, where a child learned that they were only embraced when they met an impossible standard. The message was clear: you are acceptable when you are perfect. The moment you falter, you lose your right to be loved. So they built an identity around infallibility. They became the competent one, the reliable one, the one who doesn't make mistakes. And apologizing threatens to shatter that carefully constructed image. Beneath the surface is a desperate, exhausting performance. A lifetime of hiding flaws, covering mistakes, rewriting narratives to preserve the illusion of perfection. An apology would mean admitting the performance has cracks. It would mean risking the loss of love they've been fighting their entire life to secure. When confronted, they don't just deny wrongdoing. They rewrite reality. They gaslight, not necessarily with malice, but because their survival depends on maintaining the story where they are blameless.
That never happened. You're misremembering. I would never do that. They might even appear genuinely confused by your accusation, because in their internal world, they cannot afford to hold the narrative where they failed. The cognitive dissonance is too painful, so they reject it entirely.
Or they shift blame so subtly you almost don't notice. I only said that because you made me feel. If you hadn't done X, I wouldn't have done Y. The apology becomes conditional, buried under layers of justification. In work settings, they become the colleague who never admits error, even when the evidence is glaring. They attribute failures to external circumstances, bad timing, incompetent teammates, unclear instructions, anything but their own judgment. And slowly, people stop trusting them, not because they make mistakes, but because they refuse to own them.
Life is a zero-sum game. Every interaction is a subtle battle for dominance. To apologize is to surrender, to lose ground, to hand the other person a weapon they will inevitably use against me. This agreement emerges from environments where power was scarce and ruthlessly guarded, where admitting fault meant being demoted in the family hierarchy, where parents or siblings used vulnerability as ammunition in ongoing emotional warfare. They learned early the world is not safe. People do not collaborate, they compete. And the moment you show weakness, you become prey. So they adopted a combative posture. Every disagreement is a contest. Every conversation has a winner and a loser. Apologizing means defeat, and defeat in their unconscious calculus is unacceptable. Beneath this is a deep distrust of human goodness. They cannot conceive of a relationship where admitting fault doesn't result in exploitation, where saying "I was wrong" doesn't mean the other person gains permanent leverage. Arguments with them feel exhausting because they're not trying to understand, they're trying to win. They keep score. They bring up your past mistakes as evidence that you're the real problem. Oh, so I'm the bad guy? What about when you did this 3 years ago? They reframe the conflict so they emerge as the victim. They make you defend yourself instead of addressing their behavior.
The original issue dissolves into a game of who has been wronged more. In relationships, this creates a toxic dynamic. Apologies become transactions. I'll apologize if you apologize first. Or worse, I don't owe you an apology because you did something worse. In professional settings, they are the manager who cannot admit poor judgment, the colleague who blames everyone else when a project fails. They protect their ego at the expense of team cohesion. And over time, people learn not to bring issues to them. Not because the issues disappear, but because the cost of confrontation is too high. The relationship becomes a minefield where honesty is punished and resentment quietly accumulates. If we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. If enough time passes, the issue dissolves on its own. Bringing up the past is your problem, your inability to move on, your choice to hold grudges. This agreement is common in families where conflict was either explosive or completely suppressed, where issues were never addressed, only buried, where the unspoken rule was, we don't talk about difficult things. We pretend. We move forward. They learned that discomfort is something to avoid, not process. That the path to peace isn't through resolution, but through silence. And now, as adults, they perceive your need for an apology as unnecessary excavation. Why are you digging up what's already over? Beneath this is profound conflict avoidance, an inability to tolerate the discomfort of sitting with their own mistakes. It's easier to ignore, to wait it out, to hope you forget. But you don't forget, and neither do they. The unresolved wounds fester. You bring up something that hurt you last month, last year, 5 years ago. They respond with frustration. Why are you bringing this up again? I thought we moved past this. You're living in the past. They act as though your pain has an expiration date, as though time alone heals what was never acknowledged. Or they go silent. They shut down entirely, refusing to engage. The conversation dies, and you're left holding the weight of unresolved hurt alone. In families, this manifests as decades of unspoken resentment. Siblings who smile at holiday dinners while nursing wounds from childhood. Parents who never apologized, and adult children who learned that bringing up the past means being labeled as dramatic or unforgiving. The tragedy is that these individuals genuinely believe they're keeping the peace, that silence is maturity. But what they're really doing is choosing comfort over connection.
Here's what people often miss. The person who never apologizes is not living in freedom. They are living in a prison of their own making. Every unapologized hurt is a relationship they can never fully repair. Every deflection is a moment of intimacy they forfeited. Every defensive reaction is a reinforcement of the walls they've spent a lifetime building. They lose friendships slowly, imperceptibly. People stop confiding in them. Partners grow distant. Children learn not to bring their pain to them because it will be met with dismissal or counterattack. And beneath it all is profound loneliness, because they cannot be known, not fully, because being known requires admitting imperfection, and imperfection in their hidden agreements equals annihilation. The person who cannot apologize is not powerful. They are paralyzed, locked in a psychological contract that promised safety but delivered isolation.
An apology is not a sign of weakness. It is a testament to psychological strength. It requires the courage to hold your self-worth and your mistakes in the same hands. To say, I am valuable and I was wrong. Both things can be true. Those who cannot apologize are imprisoned by their own hidden agreements. They are paying the price of genuine connection for the illusion of safety. And while we can understand their prison, we are not obligated to live in it with them. If you recognize these patterns in yourself, know this: the agreements you made were survival strategies. They served you once, but they are costing you now, and you can renegotiate them. You can learn that vulnerability is not annihilation, that imperfection does not erase your worth, that yielding does not mean losing, that the past, when acknowledged, can finally be released. And if you love someone trapped in these agreements, you cannot force them to apologize, but you can stop accepting their silence as an answer. You can name the pattern. You can refuse to participate in the hidden contract. Because the deepest truth is this: an apology is not just words. It is a recognition of shared humanity, a willingness to witness the impact of your actions and say, I see you, I hear you, and I take responsibility. And that is not weakness. That is the quiet, radical act of being fully human.